a note sheet, and I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit on this. We'll get to the requirements in a minute. There's a couple of extras. I grabbed that. The first step after we know what we're trying to accomplish, which is we're going to make a bowl set or a bottle set or a vase set, and you can kind of choose what that looks like. The first step is to get your clay and measure it out. If you're going to make a set, you want to make sure that that set starts out with the same amount of clay. And it doesn't actually matter the amount of clay, but the size of your project will matter. So for me, I'm going to start here, and I'm going to wedge up some clay. And remember, these are about 3 pounds each. I'm going to wedge up a couple of them together, and then I'm going to go back to the scale, and I'm going to cut them into 1.7 pounds of clay. When I throw a bowl, I use 1.7 pounds of clay. When I'm doing a basic soup cereal bowl, okay, just a nice curved bowl. So I'm just going to wedge this up quick. When you do this, you can just do it one at a time still. Just make sure you're starting with close to the same amount of clay, because you're going to get different results if you don't. So just wedge that up. Set that aside, because I'm going to throw a couple of these. I'm going to wedge up a couple of them. If I was doing production work, like a lot of potters do, they would wedge up all the clay they want for a certain amount of time. And for me, if I'm going to make a set of something, or have a big project to work on, I wedge up enough clay for about 2 hours. Because I want to just sit and I want to just get to work. And because I've been doing it a long time, I can sit and watch a movie while I'm throwing. I don't recommend that you do that. You need to be focusing on the clay itself. But once you get good at things, you can watch something or do something else. Okay. Alright, just a quick look. Alright, now we're going to take it back to the scale. If you haven't used the scale or don't know where it's at, it's right back here. The most important part about the scale for you is, come and clean it off, is the display right here. When it has nothing on it, it should say 0. Okay, if it says something else, all you do, there's a little button on here and you just hit tear. You hit that and it will tear it or bring it down to 0. So, just going to come here, 6.5 pounds, but we're just going to make some cuts. 1.8, so we're just going to take a little bit off. Okay. Another one, and then something more. there are potters who, I'm at 1.7, they'll be like 1.75, and they get it exact, and they want everything to be exact as they're moving their projects forward. 1.7. And some potters actually wedge up and ball out their clay well in advance. So a day in advance, maybe the night before, 1.7, they'll go in and wedge up and ball out all their clay, wrap it up real tight so that when they show up the next day, they can just get right to it. You could do that, but you don't need to do that. Okay, that gives me enough to play around with there. Got a little bit of extra there, that's good. And for me, I'm going to put mine in my tub. You're just going to put yours in a bag. And then I'm going to cover it. Make sure you cover the clay. All right. So the first step is to get your clay ready. Whatever it is you're doing. If you're making a bowl set, I would recommend having the same amount of clay to start with. We're going to talk about how that looks in a second. Then you're going to figure out your wheel. You need to know what's going on with your wheel, what's the direction, all that great stuff. I just caught a pot off of this morning, so I have this pad of clay. I can throw my clay right down on that clay because it's not chunky, it's not shiny, or I can clean it off. Either way. So I'm going to cruise through making a bowl, and I'm going to come and break it down. Talk about a few things. So we're going to get that on there. We're going to get the wheel spinning. We're going to seal it. We're going to cone it. And we're going to cone it down or bring it down. Okay, it gets a little wobbly, don't stress. This is what the refining stage is for. Push that in, bring that down. Feel what the clay is doing. Got an air bubble. I can't push that out. Okay, I still have an air bubble. When I push through this air bubble, it'll pop, and if I'm trying to adjust the air bubble, everything will get wobbly. So what I do is I just make sure I'm extra kind of firm, and now I'm going to open it down. So far, we're the exact same steps to throwing a cylinder. So we're going to open it down. So I'm going to push down and in. Now, one thing that's going to be a little bit different right now is I'm going to leave extra clay for my bowl at the bottom. So I want to be 2 thicknesses of my wood knife. I just want a good, thick bottom. And the reason for that, I'm going to trim it up. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. So as I push down on there, I can take my needle tool, push it down at the bottom, put my finger down at the bottom where it hits the clay, pull it out, and from where my needle is, where my finger is to the end of the needle is how thick that is. And so we come in here and we go, I'm at 1, 2 and a little bit. So we're a good thickness. I could probably go a little bit deeper. All right. So to keep cruising forward, again, we'll come back and break this down a little bit. So these steps are the same. We open this. It's a little bit thicker. It doesn't have to be. I just like a nice tall foot. I'll show you that in a minute. Now this next one, my ring finger and middle finger are going to pull towards me, but before I pulled right towards my thumb didn't move. This time I'm going to start to set the bowl shape. So I'm going to pull towards me, I'm going to swoop upwards. So my hand is going to move up. So we come in here, pull towards me, right there, and then I'm going to swoop up. There's my air bubble. Now there's a couple of things why we do this. I'm setting the bowl shape on the inside. That's the most important shape. The outside should be staying straight or some sort of an angle. It should never round out until we're just about done with it, because that's going to hold the strength of the bowl. But we get this shape happening. So I pulled like this and I swooped up. Now, if you can remember, I told you this eagle like this. And this is where that practice really came in. If you're still throwing like this, you're going to cause yourself a few problems. But when our eagle is like this, I'm literally moving the clay between my hands. When it's like this, I'm pushing and the clay's just running up whatever my hand's doing. I'm not actually guiding it. So to make a bowl, I'm going to put my hand in the middle. Index finger, middle finger, other fingers are just supporting. Thumbs are on the outside. And I'm going to push in with my right hand. So the next step after get your clay and start throwing that you need to really clarify is the swoop. And now we're going to push over and lift up. And we're always going to swoop upwards. So over and up, over and up. And it's barely an over and then an up. Push underneath with my right hand, grab that clay, and guide it up. Okay, do you see how the outside is still fairly straight? Okay, there's not a lot of curve to it. If there's a curve to it right now, your next pull is almost guaranteed to make it flop. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Grab that clay. And now on this one, because my bowl's taller, my index finger's in there, but it's not actually going to do the work. My middle finger is going to do the work. That's where my pressure's at. And I'm going to push over, grabbing that clay, distributing it up and out, moving slowly. Okay, see how the outside's still fairly cone shaped, it's straight edges. Inside, the bottom still has a curve to it. And now we're going to rib this. Ribbing your cylinder was not that big of a deal. Oh, right there, perfect. I mean, it's important, especially if we're going to shape our cylinders into a vase or something, but just practicing was a big deal. And this is where that practice comes in. My metal rib is going to come in with my left hand. It's going to come in at 7 o'clock. It's going to hit the bottom. I'm holding 2/3, if not 3/4 the way up. It's going to hit the bottom. It's going to bend. I'm going to push over and up. The round part is facing my leg. So I'm going to push over and up. And I do this with one hand so I can see. I'm not like this. I want to be able to see what's happening. I'm going to come here, hit at the bottom. It bends just a little bit. Push in towards the center, push out, and now you're going to see that we're going to get a little bit of shape on the outside. Not a ton, just a little bit. Start pushing and then just gently lift upwards. So we get a decent shape on the middle, start to get a little bit of a shape on the outside. Will you grab me a paper towel? So, we ribbed that. Oh, now we're going to rib the outside. We rib the outside with our flat part of our rib, and it just comes underneath here. You should set it right there. Thank you. Set it right up top, and it's good. Okay, the next things we're going to do. We're going to clean up the rim. Because you use this, you're going to take a paper towel, cut it into a square or a rectangle or whatever this is, and we're going to fold it. Fold it down. And that fold, I'm going to dip it in water. The fold points towards me. As it spins, I want the fold for the clay to be coming into the fold, not into the open part of it. And I'm just going to gently, gently, gently press down on my rim. I'm not really adding a lot of pressure, just kind of holding it there. You can move it back and forth a little bit. And that's going to round it out. It's going to compress it, and it's going to make it stronger. If you don't, you'll have little chunks. You could have flat spots. You could have sharp edges. And sharpness on a bowl is going to chip, where a round is going to chip later or not as often. Okay, next step is you're going to take your wood knife. No, you're going to take your wood rib. So before we were on a cylinder, we were using a wood knife, right? We're running it down our finger like this. I'm going to use a wood rib, do a similar thing, but the reason why I use a wood rib is that profile sits right underneath my bowl. Okay, and if I use a wood knife, I have to be like way back here to see what's happening. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to hold it, two hands, and I'm going to come just above, so not on the wheel, but just above. I'm going to gently push in and clean that up. It's really important that you do this. If you don't clean up this, your clay is going to come out like a skirt or a suction cup. And when you go to cut it off and lift it, it'll be suctioned down and it won't come off very well, and your clay is going to kind of flop. So let's show you what's next. So we have our board, and I want you to write this down as steps. So maybe on the second column, this is how you take it off, and I want you to do this very specifically. So our bowl is done. It looks pretty dry. We've cleaned up the rim. We've taken off the skirt there, and then you're going to do this. Now you could do this before, you could do this now, but either way, hey.
Do you have any paper towels like this?
Maybe. So, if you can take one out of my dispenser, we're not using them today.
I'll call them. I need one.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my wheel, okay? Because I'm going to get up, I'm going to go over and grab a board. There's a good chance that you forgot to grab a board, okay? And any board will do. If you're into this a couple of days, you might be making a couple of bowls a day, so you can get a bigger board where you can put 2 or 3 bowls on it. Or you can just grab a small one. So I grabbed a small board, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is make sure my hands are clean. Okay, I just wiped them on the towel. You can go and wash them off. It's really important that your hands are clean and dry. I'm going to come back to my wheel, and I'm going to put my board on my bucket. All my boards should fit on these buckets. Just make sure it's hitting 4 corners so it doesn't tip. And then you can turn your wheel on or leave it off. It doesn't matter. It can be spinning while you cut it or it not, either way. Make sure that your bowl is compressed and dried. If it's shiny on the outside or soggy on the inside, you need to fix that before you take it off. Then we're gonna wrap this around our fingers, index fingers. We're gonna push straight down on the wheel. I'm gonna pull towards me, and as I do this, my elbows have to move out. If my elbows don't move out, the wire lifts up, and we're gonna cut through the bottom of our pot. Now you still might, maybe yours is a little bit thin, but we push down, pull towards us, and then, again, make sure your hands are clean and dry. We're gonna lift at the bottom. Thumb and middle finger are gonna grab at the bottom. Now, I want you to look at my hands real quick. Some of you are going to do this, and it's gonna cause you problems. You're gonna try to lift it straight up with your hands like this. When you do that, you're gonna taco your bowl. It's just gonna, like that. You come here at the bottom, and because I just cut it, I'm going to twist it and pop that off, like that. And then I set it right onto my board. Now, there are other ways to take it off. I don't think there are other good ways in a classroom like this. But if your clay is wet, if your project is wet, you're gonna have a really hard time getting it off. And then we're gonna set that aside. For me, I like to let my bowls sit out for about half an hour. Then the rim gets firm, and then I flip them over. So if you look behind me, I have a couple of bowls here I threw yesterday. They're now drying upside down. And that's how I like to do them. You don't have that luxury as much as I do to be in here. So let's do that again. Set that aside. We'll grab a chunk of clay. Pat this into a ball, put it down, slap it down, and then let's go through the steps again. Oh, the wheel's off. So we're gonna start it. We're going to seal it. We're going to cone it. Now every move you make, the more you can do it efficiently, the quicker you're gonna be. And you can just get there. Which is why we do practice. But as beginners, it's okay to be like, here's my step, here's my step, here's my step. Make sure you hit them. Because if you start opening this now, it's wobbly, because you're just trying to get there, and you open this now, your bowl's gonna fling and flop. Because that wobbliness, once we get out here with centrifugal force, will just keep going. It'll make it worse. So, we're gonna refine that.
How thick were the sides of your bowl?
They're probably just under a 1/4 inch thick. Down at the bottom, they're thicker, and I'm gonna show you how we're gonna trim that up in just a second. So we're gonna open this. And then I'm gonna pull towards me, and this is, I'm gonna swoop it upwards. Right before I do that, I'm gonna accent that rim. Do you see how sharp that is? Always, always, always come in here and just lightly press on that rim. They call this truing the rim, and you want to do this every time. Come in here and just press on your rim just a little bit, because if your rim's wobbly, the rest of your clay will actually follow. All right, we're gonna swoop it towards my thumb. So pull towards me. I like to hold my sponge with my thumb. So I pull towards me, out a little bit, and lift up. If you're getting really wide dog dishes, it's because you're just pulling without controlling that clay. So make sure that you're supporting your thumb so you can pull it towards you efficiently. All right, inside starts to get round, outside is thick but fairly straight, okay? Now, as I move forward, I want to ask you this. Is that a bowl? Barely? Okay.
Seems more of a cup to it.
More like a cup? Okay. All right, now we're going to do the next pull. So we're going to grab the clay with our hands, push in with my right hand, grab that little bead or chunk of clay, and swoop over and up. I want my thumb to kind of come up at an angle. My inside hand is going to swoop. Make sure it's plenty wet. Grab that clay. And guide that clay between your fingers. If you feel something weird happening, slow your movements. Reduce your pressure a little bit. You can reduce your speed on your wheel too, but sometimes that's a problem. Okay, scoop that. Now, is that a bowl?
I feel like it's closer.
Closer to a bowl?
Looks more like a pot.
This is more like a pot? Okay. So we're gonna do another pull. I'm gonna come in here. If you notice, I took all the water out, okay? Do that, it's gonna be good for you. I'm gonna grab this clay down at the bottom. And this one is the one I'm pushing with my middle finger just because it's a little longer. I'm gonna push over. Getting a little wobbly, so I just hold steady, reduce my pressure, get up to the top, and slowly let go. When I am throwing production, and by production I mean like a set of between 12 and 72 bowls, whatever it is we're doing. When I sit down, the first probably 3 or 4 are gonna be individual bowls. They get set over here because I need to convince myself of what shape I want to accomplish. We're gonna talk about what a set is. So, I'm gonna rib this. Oh, is that a bowl?
I'd say so.
Okay, so let's rib this. Put that in there. It's gonna hit and then bend. We're not just shoving this in there. We want it to come at a slight angle, hit on the round part. Just slow your movements, think about what you're doing. Push towards the center. Push out. We don't have a lot of problems with cracking, but when somebody does have a problem with cracking, they're not drying out and compressing their clay. That's almost a guarantee. So we get there, I'm gonna rib the outside with the flat part of my tool. Just nice and slow, nice and careful. Getting a little wobbly, but that's okay. Once we stop it, we can't tell too much. All right, the paper towel, I still have one. I can use this. Make sure you throw these in the garbage. The reason we use paper towels is if they do get in our pug bucket, they just deteriorate. Some people use chamois, which are leather. Some people use plastic bags. But we don't want that in our clay, so. Okay. We're gonna clean up the bottom. And we're gonna cut it off. So we go get our board, clean and dry our hands, cut it off. And if you're struggling with cutting it off, let me know. Down to the bottom, twist and lift. Okay. If it's dry, if it's compressed, there's a really good chance that it'll come off fairly easily. And if it's not, let me know. I'll show you what you need to do. Set that aside. Okay, let's do that one more time. So, type is it? a set is something that has similar attributes. Okay, with a bowl, usually a set is the same function first, the same size, like the dimensions are pretty similar, and then the same direction, or sorry, the same, wow, I just totally went blank. Sometimes you miss words. Let me throw for a second. The same, oh, the same surface. So how we decorate it. A series can be similar things that have similar shapes, but the sizes are different. It can be similar shapes, but the surface is different. It can be similar or completely different shapes, but the surface is the same. There's a whole bunch of things that can be considered a series. Usually when I throw bottles and vases, they're a series, not a set. When I throw bowls, they're a set. Now, I'm going to pull towards me and swoop this up. When I throw production sets, when I say production, I mean a lot, for whatever reason. Usually I break my sets into 4, 8, and 12. So very rarely do I do a bigger set than 12. But I'll throw 24, 36, 48, 72 bowls, and then all I do is I find those 4 or those 8 that all really look good together and set them together. That's how I make a set. Because they're all going to be slightly different, right? And so I just I don't need them to be perfect. All right, is that a bowl? No? Okay. So let's say you're throwing and you get to here. Is that a bowl? Closer to a bowl? Okay. And let's say that you get to here and you're paying attention and you're doing good, but every time you get out here, that happens. Or something else happens. You have a couple of ways to deal with it. One, ask questions. Why is that happening? Obviously, I moved my hands too fast and I pushed over too quickly and I added too much pressure. So I ripped right through my wall, right? It happens. So for you, seal it, cone it, bring it down. Refine it. Sometimes it likes to fight you, it's okay. And some of you are going, sometimes? It always likes to fight me, right? It does. And we're going to open it. True out my rim. Pull this towards me and swoop upwards. Clean out the inside. Okay, so we've determined this is not a bowl. Right? Okay, so we're going to pull this one more time. And we lift it up. Is that a bowl? Closer? Okay, but every time you get here and then you go to the next step, something fails. Every time. And you're struggling, you're on day 2. You want to save something because you want to learn how to trim, okay? I'm going to tell you right now, this is a bowl. This is a perfectly acceptable bowl. What you need to start thinking about is, what would you do with this bowl? This is a large ring bowl. This would be a great like yogurt and granola snack bowl for night. It would be a salsa bowl. You want 1 scoop of ice cream? That's what this bowl's for, right? You're like, I just want some ice cream, but I don't want to go grab a big bowl. You're gonna put 5 scoops in there. One scoop, maybe 2. You pack it in there. That's a perfect bowl for that. Some of my favorite bowls are this size. I use bowls this size for measuring out ingredients when I'm cooking. So I need a certain amount of oats or a certain amount of something, and I put them in a bowl so I can just throw them in whatever I'm doing. Perfect bowl. So what do we do to finish this off? The same thing. We rivet. Now, this isn't a 1.7 pound bowl. This is more like a 1.25 pound bowl, but we'll get rid of the clay and it'll be okay. Rib the outside, hit the rim, same steps. Clean up the bottom. Now, when I'm cleaning up this bottom, because it's thicker, I'll be able to cut underneath a little bit more. Two hands, cut under. If you get that little line, it's okay. You just tilt your tool into it. And then we'll be able to trim this up. Okay. I should have taken a photo. I have a photo of a bowl that my second son made. He took my class, and he made it. And it does not look this good. Cut that off. It's a little thick, but that's, once we trim that up, that's gonna be a perfectly acceptable bowl. Okay, is it a bigger cereal bowl? It's not, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so I just want you to focus on that for a second. So, any questions so far? You want me to refine or stick to any steps? Because I'm going to throw this bowl pretty quick. Okay? All right. Is it quick or quickly? And I say that and I'll probably struggle the most. There's a big old air bubble. That's awesome. Open that. There are ways to get your pieces to be nearly identical. We're not worried about that right now. So let me tell you what my requirements for you if you decide to do wheel throwing bowl sets are. You need to spend seven days throwing, trimming, and making your set. Your set could be, technically a set is 4. Some of us sometimes are like, yeah, but 3 of them look good and 1 of them really trashy. Okay, some of us are, I never got to my 4th. Like I made them, but 4 of them never survived. Whatever that looks like. So a set for you in a beginning class is between 2 and 4 bowls that you made during the 7-period time frame that are decorated similarly. That's a set. So, I'm gonna hit my rim here. Is it possible in 7 days for you to get nearly an identical set? It really is. Is it probable? I don't know. I don't know. I've seen it done, but I don't need it to be done for you to take home a couple of things that you're going to use at your house for whatever reason. Again, ring bowls, yogurt, whatever. So if you turn in that, we'd call that a set. Okay, I know we look at it and go, but it's not actually a set, right? But our biggest defining attribute right now is a grouping of something that you made. That's what makes it a set. Okay, so just keep that in mind as you move forward. I'm going to trim a bowl real quick, and I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. And then I'm going to throw in another bowl, and then I'm going to throw a base, I think, and then we'll be done. So let's make sure we got what we needed. So steps for trimming on the back there. So the things you need to know about trimming. You need to know how thick it is from the middle bottom to the middle here, and what kind of a curve you have. Okay, because if you look at your photos on here, you're going to see we're going to trim this out, and we want to make the outside curve similar to the inside curve, the best we know how. And trimming is a whole nother skill. So the biggest thing you're going to do, you're going to take something flat. I thought I had a ruler over here, but I don't. So I'm just going to take my wood knife, set it across my rim. I'm going to take a needle tool, put the blunt end down straight to the middle. Then I'm going to push them together and lift up. When I put this on the wheel head now, from the bottom of my wood knife to the top of my rim is how thick that bottom is. Okay, so you just got to go, oh, that's good. So I'm at 1 1/4 wood knives for this bottom. If I was at 2, that would be great. If I was less than 1, I wouldn't trim it very much because you're going to poke a hole in it. Next thing we need to do, dry off our wheel. We're going to set it as close to center as possible. And then we're going to turn the wheel on and see what happens. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to make that off center for a second. Off center, if there was a laser coming straight down onto my wheel, it would be pointing right into the center of that dot. Okay? And as we look, we can see there's more clay between the center of that dot and here and the center of that dot and here, right? Can you see that? And we need to equalize that. We start by putting it into the center the best we can. And then we're going to adjust. So I come here, I'm going to put a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And then I'm going to push it away. Now, what does that actually mean? How I check from here on out is I bring my thumb at 6 o'clock. I'm going to support it with my right hand, and right below the edge, I'm going to bring this in, and it's hitting, and I can tell it's hitting on 1. Okay, so I push it. As soon as it hits, I stop moving my finger. If you do it on the side, you'll never be able to tell where it's hitting because you're just going to be running with the clay. So I come here, hit, hit, hit. So I get it to that one. I'm gonna grab it with my thumbs and my middle finger, and I'm gonna push just a little bit. Now, if we measured, right, we could actually measure and go, I need to push it so far, about there. And then we're gonna come in here, put our thumb there, hit, hit, hit. If you can't really tell, slow your wheel down. So it's hitting right past the one, right there. Move it just a tiny bit. And then when we get there, if it's hitting about 75% or more, then you're probably as centered as it's gonna get. If you choose to do a bowl set, we'll do another trimming demo later. So don't stress too much about that. I'm gonna get 3 little clay chunks. I'm gonna push down, push that on here. It's super important that my left hand is pushing down on my bowl. If it's not holding it stable, when I push this clay, it's going to move my bowl. Put my clay chunk there, I push straight down on my clay chunk, wrap it around, and I do that 3 times. The clay doesn't have to be huge. In fact, centrifugal force, if I have big chunks of clay, centrifugal force will take the mass of that and throw them off. So I actually want them to be fairly small. And then we're gonna trim it. I have 2 basic tools to trim. You choose. I use this tool only, but you can use both tools and it's perfectly fine. Loop tool, ribbon tool, loop tool. We're gonna come in here, and because we already cleaned off the sides, my foot is pretty much set. I just need to clean it up. Now, a foot comes down and over. You can see that in your photo there. It's gonna come down, then it sits, and then it's gonna come up. So, I'm gonna come here at 3 o'clock, holding stable. I hold my thumbs together. This allows me to pivot. I just gently put my left hand on top of my bowl, and I slowly push inward. Now, a little trimming advice. If you have something that's flat, come in with the point of your tool. If you have something that's pointed, come in with the flat part of your tool. Okay? So we're gonna come in here and just hit the point there, push inward. It's not 90 degrees. I'm gonna tilt it a little bit. And if your bowl is not rounded very well in the middle and you push in too far, you're gonna cut a hole in it because it's flat. And so we wanna envision what the outside and inside do with the curve. I'm gonna come in here and hit this rim. And then I'm gonna come here. So my hands are straight up and down. And I'm gonna come here, and I'm just gonna push down and roll over. And this is gonna give me a roundness. I'm not moving my tool yet, just pivoting it and rolling it. This is gonna kind of give us a roundness to the outside. Slow movements. Just like with throwing, if I move too fast, I create big lines, but if I move slow, you can barely tell we've been trimming. All right, we're gonna do the top. And if you look at your photo again, it cuts up and in, and that looks like this. I'm gonna come here at 3 o'clock, holding this. I call this holding this like a paintbrush, like you're painting a house. This is a pencil. This is a paintbrush. If you come in, it's gonna be hard with a pencil. So we're gonna come in here and just gently press down. Super important that your clay is pretty centered. Okay, and that starts to give us the foot. So this right here is called a foot ring. There. And then we're gonna come right into the center, hit that, and just gently move outwards. Centrifugal force is real, so as you're doing this and you go flying out, because you're allowing the clay or the wheel to throw you. I create this groove first right here, so that when I do come over, it gives me something to kind of butt up against. And then we're going to come in and just gently smooth that out. Now, every potter has a different foot, a different bottom, a different way of doing it, and that's the cool thing. I don't have a lot of texture under here, just my signature. Some potters come in here and they'll be like, we have a little swirl down there, and that's perfectly fine. Maybe they have circles over and over and over down there, and that's perfectly fine. Some potters come in and grab a carving tool and carve designs on the bottom of their feet, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, I'm going to come in here and just round this over just a little bit. Just come in here and round it over. And then I'm going to hit it with my finger. So I want you to see something. So do you see how it's a little bit chunky? Okay, if I come in here and I just pinch that and just, this is called compression or burnishing, and just use the pressure to make a nice smooth foot. So you hold it and you smooth it out. Super important. Sign it. So we went from this to that. You see how we can trim it up into a nice looking bowl. Now, there are ways we can fix this without trimming it too much, and we'll kind of move from there as we go forward. But let me tell you the parts that are most important on a bowl. To me, the foot is the most important part. And the reason for that is when it hits your table, if it's not clean and smooth, it's not going to be on your table very many times. Okay. Then we have the curve of the bowl. Whatever it's designed for is the next important thing. And then we have the shape and the rim. I don't care if the rim is a little bit off. It should be smooth. I want a spoon to be able to hit the rim and not chip it. And if it's square, you're more likely to chip that rim. So we want our spoon to hit. On a bowl like this, I want it to go down to the bottom and just kind of curve over to the other side. I don't want to just go down and stop. Now, as beginning potters, it's okay if it's not a perfect curve. Okay, you're doing your best to figure this out. It takes a while to get a bowl that looks that good. Okay, it doesn't mean you can't, and some of you will. You'll make some good bowls. But it took me a while to get that bowl. I do want to cover this before I do one more thing. And I want you to trim this, but if we get there and it's still a little chunky, see if you can't see how that's kind of chunky. Once we're done, if you take a sponge and smooth that out. Again, we want to lighten it up and trim it up. But if we take a sponge and just a few seconds, we can take it from chunky to smooth, and then that'll be perfectly fine as well. It's not super thick. If it's super thick, we still need to trim it. So as we get there, I'll be guiding you. I'll be like, hey, let's just try to get something done. Let's try to save a piece and kind of move from there. Trim that up later though. Any questions on that? Again, we'll cover that again later. Is anyone interested in making vases? Okay, let's do a quick vase. And then I'll give you the rest of the class to work. So a vase is, I'm using 3 pounds. You can use 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. A vase is just a slightly shaped cylinder. So you're going to make the best cylinder you know how, usually with a little bit more clay. So there's 3 pounds. One of the biggest mistakes we make when we're making vases is we don't open it up far enough. And the second is we try to get the shape from the start. What you want to do is you want to create your cylinder, rib it, and then create a shape. So let's pull this up more. Let's talk about time frames real quick. And I want you to really, really pay attention to this. We have, after today, 7 class periods to work with clay until the end of the semester, because we need to fire, glaze, refire, clean, and we'll be done. The 3rd of May is when all projects are due. After that, they'll be getting fired, and then we'll glaze them, and then we'll fire them again, and hopefully we can get them all out before the seniors leave. If not, they'll be here the next week, the week of graduation. So what does that mean for you? It means you get to pick one project or the other. So you can pick a hand building project or a wheel throwing project. Okay. And the hand building project is the interconnected pieces that go together. You're going to be doing sgraffito on or masking. Okay, so we create a cylinder. Okay. Now, if we want this to be a little bit more in, add a little water. Just come in here and push that in first. Now I'm going to come in and add just a little bit of shape, and then I'll come in here and fix my rib. So we're going to add some water. I ribbed it. And all I'm going to do for adding shape, I'm going to grab the clay. My outside hand is going to be slightly above my inside hand. I'm going to get about to the middle, and they're going to switch. So my inside hand will be above my outside hand. So grab that clay, just guiding it up. A little bit of shape goes a long way. I decided to get a little bit wobbly. And then we're going to rib it again. When I rib a flat cylinder, I rib it with the round part of my rib. When I rib a round part, it's sticking out, I rib it with the flat part of my rib. So I'm going to come in here and just wrap that around. And the same thing goes with a bowl, and it goes with a vase. If it's a little bit thicker, you're just going to have to trim it up a little bit more. And you trim them up pretty similarly. Okay, so we see the shape comes into the neck. The neck really is about what the cylinder was, and that's important. We throw to that shape, or that dimension, then we add a little bit of shape to it. If we throw to this dimension here, you're never going to get that in, okay? All right, clean up the bottom. And again, back to what you get to do. There really are 3 options. The first one is you only do the hand-built project. Okay, 7 days. That's you spend a lot of time on it. The other one is you only do a wheel-thrown project. which is 2 to 4 bowls. You know, working hard to make the best bowl you can, whatever that is. And then the third, and this is okay too, is you kind of do a hybrid. And you're like, no, I kind of want to do both. And so you start your hand-built project, and instead of going 2 pieces, maybe you'll just make 1 piece with a surface design, or smaller pieces with surface design, and you spend 3-ish days, and then you jump on the wheel, or vice versa. And that's perfectly fine too. Does anyone want me to clarify what that means again? What I'm expecting. You do not need to do both projects. Okay, somebody's gonna show up and be like, I have 7 days to do both the hand-built and the wheel-thrown project. That is not true. Okay, you need to pick one project or the other, or we can compress the 2 projects. Yeah?
So if we're gonna do both, we don't have to meet all the requirements for the hand-built one?
Correct. You do need to make something, and you need to use some surface like we did. You're just gonna do it on a smaller scale.
Okay.
Whatever that is for you. Yeah.
So could you make like could you make like a spoon and the bowl?
You could. I'm not a huge fan of spoons because you're gonna have to not glaze part of it, but you certainly could. You could make that. I'm not gonna stop you. The maximum number of pieces you get to fire at the end of this semester are 4, and that's it. So if you have 3 bowls and a spoon, fantastic, right? If you spent 7 class periods working to make 3 bowls and a spoon, if I was making bowls, I'm gonna hope that over the first 4.5, 5 class periods, you actually try to make 12 or 15 bowls. And then you save 5, 6, or 7, and then you trim up and save your favorite 2 or 3 or 4. That's what I'm hoping for you. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything I need to cover? Wheel throwers, if you decide to do wheel throwing, we will, again, cover some of these things again, because it is a little bit more complex. Hand builders, if that's what you want to do, and I think that's awesome, you should have your ideas right ready to start on Tuesday. You want to get right into your project. I would recommend, well, I don't know what to recommend. If you decide to do both, you can do both kind of the same time, or you can do one and then the other. Okay, and you can choose. So, a super quick raising of hands.